Cardiff City Football Club has a rich and at key moments hugely successful history stretching back 125 years. There have been a good number of memorable times along the way, while the Bluebirds have produced matches and incidents that I love to read about and recall. What about the League Cup tie played at Ninian Park during April 1945? A second leg fixture which lasted 3 hours, 38 minutes before Billy Rees netted the Bluebirds winner. It was a contest played over home and away legs, and a replay after 2 games simply wasn't possible. It was, after all, a wartime fixture, and Bristol City edged the opening game 2-1 at Ashton Gate. Cardiff were then 2-1 ahead at Ninian when the match officials decided next goal wins it. The aggregate score was 3-3 when former coal miner Rees, a future Wales international from Blaengaul Bridgend, scored the winner. It was surely the most welcome goal in Cardiff City history, and when it came, Rees fell over the goal line, taking the ball with him at 6:40 p.m. The kick-off had been at 3:02 p.m. All 22 players were riddled with cramp and unable to kick the ball any distance at all. Fullback Arthur Buller-Lever recalled the game years later, saying, "I didn't think either side would ever score again. The game dragged on and there were supporters going home for tea and then returning to Ninian Park later. By the time Billy Rees scored our winner, it was a relief for everybody, on and off the pitch. It wasn't a classic goal. Billy sort of fell into the net and the ball went with him. We didn't even have the energy to celebrate. One heck of a cup tie." I also love the tale of Scottish midfield player Malcolm Clark, who played for Cardiff between 1967 and 1969. Clark, from Clydebank, joined the Bluebirds from Leicester City and was always a natty dresser who wore detachable collars on his shirts. Dressing room joker Brian Harris was the prankster who bought a smaller size collar and substituted it. Harris and his Bluebirds teammates found the situation hilarious as Clark struggled to fasten his collar, unable to understand why it wouldn't fit. Then there was Danny Malloy's admission that he thumped Middlesbrough's overconfident centre-forward Brian Clough during a match. A story told to me by Danny himself. That did make me smile. Manager Jimmy Scola setting fire to the Ninian Park goal net with a flamethrower was another humorous tale. Parsons told me that one, describing the time Scola used the flamethrower to try and clear ice off the pitch. I also love the story that Charlie Oatway used his full and official name when he signed his Cardiff City contract. Anthony, Philip, David, Terry, Frank, Donald, Stanley, Jerry, Stephen, James Oatway. He had been named after the entire Queen's Park Rangers promotion squad of 1972-73. Perhaps most intriguing of all, though, was powerful forward Tommy Best, a player whose fierce shot could reputedly puncture a football. Best was born in Milford Haven, Pembrokeshire, which is 100 miles west of Cardiff Docks. He became the first black player to wear a Cardiff City shirt in match action on October 30, 1948. Best was a hugely talented player whose close control when dribbling the ball was described as a delight. He reputedly had immaculate chest control when high balls were played towards him. His soaring headers, according to those who've talked about it later, his soaring headers left defenders struggling while he had a rare ability to read games. Best had the talent to be a delicate goal-scoring artist or a brutal executioner when he let fly with that powerhouse shot. He was the son of steamship engineer Thomas, who was from Barbados, and Welsh-born Gladys. His football playing days started in West Wales, playing locally in Pembrokeshire, but the outbreak of war delayed hopes of gaining experience at Football League level. Best joined the Royal Navy and served on a minesweeper, HMS Gloman, which was berthed at Pollock Dock in Belfast. The ship was damaged during an air raid. Belfast journalist Malcolm Brodie MBE wrote about Best in 2006 after meeting him in Hereford, saying, "Tommy's story is a fascinating one. His father was from Barbados and Milford Haven was his birthplace on December 23, 1920. He was as Welsh as the valleys. He was a Royal Navy rating whose football talent was spotted by Sammy Allen, a chief petty officer from French Park Street on the Donegal Road, and introduced him to the football scene via Brantwood United, an intermediate club, Cliftonville, the Combined Services, and of course Belfast Celtic, in one of the golden eras of that renowned club, whose departure from football in 1949 left a void never adequately filled. During the war years, the North-South Intercity Cup was one of the main tournaments attracting capacity attendances. Drumcondra were a player short when they arrived from Dublin at Grosvenor Park for a match against Celtic. Best was sitting in the stand ready to watch and was invited to play, producing a brilliant performance against Bertie Fulton, one of Ireland's most accomplished fullbacks. Tommy scored the second goal and effectively eliminated Celtic from the series. Best was thrilled at being able to play so well and said, "Celtic was a wonderful club. They had quality players, real quality. I played on the wing, and it was a never-to-be-forgotten season for me. Unfortunately, I had to leave for Australia on naval duties." Jimmy Donnelly, a lifetime Celtic supporter and former player who attended the 1989 reunion dinner at Balmoral, said, "Tommy was unique in that with his unusual physical shape, he could trap a ball on his posterior." Elisha Scott, the legendary Celtic manager, who also signed young Chelsea centre-half Ron Greenwood, who later became England manager, and also Brentford striker Len Townsend. He celebrated his farewell to Ireland by scoring 6 goals for Celtic against Derry City at Brandywell, and 3 days later hit 4 for Brantford, said Scott. Belfast Celtic fans affectionately called him Darky Best, which would today, of course, would be politically totally incorrect, and quite rightly so. But his family insisted that the highly contentious nickname never worried Tommy. Indeed, they said he loved it. "I suppose it was a novelty seeing a coloured man playing in green and white," Best told the Belfast Telegraph in 2006. His daughter Jenny Hotchkiss said, "Dad loved that nickname. He didn't see anything in a colour, he saw people as people. I'm sure there were times he would have been upset, but he wouldn't show it. I think he just loved football so much he wouldn't care what people wanted to say. He was a big, powerful man, but more than anything, he was full of love." That posting to Australia prompted his exit from Belfast Celtic after a season, and Best played for Queensland team Thistle FC. He was said to have disliked Australia, though, because of the way Aboriginal people were treated. He headed back to Wales after the Second World War ended and played for Milford before being signed by 3rd Division North club Chester in 1947. Best fired 14 goals in 30 games during his first season, and that attracted Leeds, Blackburn and Blackpool scouts to watch him. The 5'10" Best, whose mighty leap was said to be a sight to behold, chose Cardiff City as his next club and doubled his wages, although it was certainly the attraction of joining a Welsh club that was the decisive factor. Manager Cyril Spires brought 27-year-old Best to Ninian Park in a £7,000 transfer, and he was pictured in the South Wales Football Echo, dressed in a suit and smiling as he signed his contract. Best's reputation as a feared striker was growing, even though his playing weight crept up from 14 stones 10 pounds to 17 stones. He was a man with an eye-catching smile, a broad grin, and he used that extensively. There were times when Best was the target for racism, and his friend Ron Parrott said, Tommy recalled it could be pretty bad at times, but he told me the worst he ever had was in a game at Merthyr, where he had bananas thrown at him and monkey chants rang out. He swore it didn't upset him. As he told me about it, he leaned to me with a wicked glint in his eye and said, the more they did it, the harder I tried. Best made his Bluebirds debut in a 2-0 defeat against West Bromwich Albion on October 13, 1948, and scored his first goal in a 4-0 win against West Ham United. He played in the last 13 fixtures of that season, scoring 6 goals, while he opened the following season with 5 goals in his first 8 appearances. One of those earned the Bluebirds a 1-0 win in a South Wales derby clash against Swansea City in front of a then record 57,510 spectators at Ninian Park. Best left Cardiff to join Queen's Park Rangers as the Bluebirds looked to balance the books in the early days of escalating transfer fees, and he became a popular figure in his year in West London. He reportedly gave 18-year-old defender John Charles of Leeds United a torrid time on his Loftus Road debut before leaving QPR and heading to Hereford. During his time at Ninian Park, he was told by manager Spires that he was going to be selected for Wales, but was then overlooked. He said later he felt his proposed international debut was called off because of the colour of my skin. He said, you have to remember that black players were a rarity. I was forced to the conclusion that I was a victim of prejudice. Best thought he had done enough to earn international honours for Wales and follow Eddie Parris, the first black player to play for Welsh teams in 1931. Parris was born to Barbadian parents during 1874 in a small village in Monmouthshire, 1 mile southwest of Chepstow. Best hoped to follow Parris into the Wales team and as a youngster was invited to play for Welsh schoolboys, but nothing else developed. During Best's 2 seasons at Cardiff City, Best told his family that manager Spires had called him into the manager's office and told him he was being considered for Wales. He thought he was going to be called up, recalled his daughter Jenny, but he was overlooked and that hurt him. It would have meant everything to Tommy. During an interview given to the Western Daily Press in 1998, Best said, I can only assume it was because of my colour that I wasn't selected. You have to remember that black players were a rarity then, and I'm forced to the conclusion that I was the victim of prejudice. I simply know I deserved to play for Wales. It is possible, though, that he may have simply been a victim of playing in the same position as Trevor Ford, a feared Welsh striker who scored 202 league goals in 401 matches, playing for Swansea Town, Aston Villa, Sunderland, Cardiff City, PSV, Newport County and Romford. Ford spent the majority of his 15-year career in the First Division and also fired 23 goals in 38 senior international appearances. The theory that the informed Ford had been in the way of Best's international programme was put forward by Bill Hearn, co-author of the book Football's Black Pioneers. Whatever the reason, Best missed out on his dream of playing for his country, later signed for Milford Haven, Hereford United, where he made 145 appearances between 1950 and 1955, scoring 67 goals. After leaving the Bulls, he had a spell with Bromsgrove Rovers. When his playing days were over, Best worked in a Mother's Pride bakery and lived in Hereford with his wife Eunice and their children, Jennifer, Paul and Judy. He went on to live at the Rose Garden Independent Living Scheme in the city and was able to visit his former club Chester City for the first time in 60 years at one stage. He played for the League Two Chester during the 1947-48 season and scored 14 goals. He played for League Two Chester during the 1947-48 season and scored 14 goals in his 40 appearances as a forward. After his visit was announced over the tannoy system before the game started in Chester, Best was welcomed by rapturous applause and cheers from supporters. He was asked for his autograph many times and met people who had remembered him playing for the club. Best was taken to see Chester play Gillingham by John Cullen, manager of the Rose Garden. We told him about the trip on his birthday in December, said John, who had links with Cardiff City as a former manager of several hotels in the city. With resident support worker Dan Maitland, Cullen and Best travelled to Chester on the Saturday morning and they stayed overnight in the city. It was a wonderful weekend, said Best. I thoroughly enjoyed meeting so many people, including those who remembered me playing. I got a warm welcome from the staff and directors. It was a great day. Tommy loved playing mat bowls, spending time in the gym when he could, and socialising with fellow residents at the Rose Garden, while he would head to a local club once a week to play snooker. I didn't like to stay in my apartment for too long, he would say. I wanted to get out and about, join in the activities. You've got to stay active to keep fit. Tommy passed away on September 18, 2018, at the age of 97. He was survived by his 3 children, 6 grandchildren, and 7 great-grandchildren. The man from West Wales was suffering from dementia before his death, but did manage to enjoy those trips to his former clubs Belfast, Chester, and Hereford. What a pity he didn't come to Ninian Park to relive 1 or 2 memories from his days with the Bluebirds. Even when he was in hospital, when he didn't really know who we were, he would still be able to tell all the nurses about his career and reel off the clubs he played for, said daughter Jenny. We would stop in a wheelchair and next to somebody who would say, hello, I'm Tommy. He would stop in his wheelchair and next to somebody would say, hello, I'm Tommy Best. Did you know I played for Cardiff City, Hereford and Queen's Park Rangers? Perhaps it's a surprise that more people don't know his story, added Jenny. I wish he could have been recognised more. I'm not certain people realise what he and other black players of that era would have gone through.